Oh, hi, everybody, and welcome to Pixelated Geek Presents Tripod. I am your host, James Huneycutt. I am here with Johnathan Crass
Hey.
and Taylor Tate.
Hello.
And so thanks for showing up. Today is what, the 25th of March? Is that right? I feel like
24th.
that's right. 24th of March. Ha! And so we'll be broadcasting live here on Hangouts on Air, and you can also see us through the Google Plus page, youtube.com/pixelatedgeek, and all the other stuff like that. We'll also be live on Twitch at the same time. And so obviously, if you have anything you want to interact with us with during this, you can do that through all of those means as well as in the chat right here. So in any case, let's get to it. So today, 24th March, a couple of cool things have happened this week. I'm going to start out with the one that I'm most excited about. I'm going to fanboy all over stuff. They confirmed 6 episodes of the X-Files. Fox is bringing it back as a limited short-run series. Now that's exciting for a whole lot of reasons. But what I kind of want to talk about with it is less the actual X-Files coming back, and more this sort of like new movement that we're seeing in television. So obviously there's a lot of stuff that's threatening cable cutting. Not threatening, excuse me, that's promoting cable cutting and threatening the cable companies. Like Netflix and, Amazon's own TV shows. So what's really interesting is that we're seeing a show that was incredibly popular, coming back out of nowhere from the grave, and this is one of those shows that has seen multiple petitions to reignite it, the same way that, say, Firefly has, but honestly on a much larger scale. I think the X-Files has one of the largest fan bases of any canceled show I've ever seen. Not that it was really truly canceled as much as like sort of died, but everybody wanted it back to the point where we saw like these. I think we've actually been focusing on Taylor's face for the last like 5 minutes, by the way, which I think is hilarious. But so we've seen this massive resurgence in popularity over the last like year or so, in particular with the new IDW comic books for it. And so Fox, which is a company that's not really known for listening to people, especially its fans, or like in the case of Fox News, reality whatsoever, Fox has decided to listen to the people and bring back a very popular show. Here's the question I'm posing. What do you think the resurgence of the show has to do with the new threat that cable is seeing from other sources? Why do you think they picked now to bring back the X-Files? And what do you guys think about the idea in general? I'm going to bounce this off JJ first, since he's actually watching the X-Files right now.
I think I'm in season 2. I think that's where I'm at.
Watch faster.
Yeah, I know. I think it's interesting that they're bringing it back. And I like that they're saying it's like a limited run thing. They're not saying we're guaranteeing X amount of seasons, because I think certain things can overstay their welcome when they have a comeback.
Yeah.
For me,
in the first place, like the X-Files did the first time around, the last 2 seasons were not received well. So, yeah, that's a good point. Go ahead.
And regarding cable cutters, the thing is, people who don't pay for cable will still find a way to watch these episodes, so I don't think it's that big of a deal. I mean, yeah, it's nice being like, hey, it's coming back to the air, you should support it, But there are other people that are like, I rather, have other ways of watching this.
Sure.
Without commercials and things like that. So I don't know if it'll pull people back to the TV, but I think it's neat to see this. Now all I know is everyone else who has other beloved shows canceled by Fox will want it to come back.
Yeah. Yes.
Which I don't think we need to have every show that has ever been canceled come back. I think X-Files stood enough where, lasted long enough where it could do a small comeback like this, and it's fine. Certain shows that might have been cut too short, I don't think they would work coming back.
Sure. Well, and I think part of the reason why they're bringing it back as a limited run is there's been a third X-Files movie kicking around for a while, and they could never seem to get it off the ground. And I strongly suspect that what we're going to be seeing with this is the plot of that, which never really was released, just sort of hinted at. The plot of that condensed down. 6 episodes is a good short run, as you mentioned. It's a really nice way of like nodding to the fans, and then Fox getting some ratings back without really abusing the show. I don't think many things can come back. I don't think it works. Like, I think, for instance, and I don't want to get into this on too much detail, but like Firefly can't, because too much time has passed. The actors don't look anywhere near the same. They'd have to set it a long time later, and the film also sort of wrapped up a lot of plot elements. So like there are things that can come back, and I like that they picked the X-Files for it, because one of the major plot lines of the X-Files was as yet unresolved at the end of the series. Taylor, what are your thoughts on this just in general? I know you haven't watched the X-Files, but just from a sort of a meta-analytical standpoint.
I think that this cycle of shows coming back is more than just shows. We've seen it done with movies as well. In fact, just today, I believe it was earlier today, Super Troopers 2 was announced as an Indiegogo campaign to make a second sequel to the original Super Troopers. And we've seen, what was that, the Veronica Mars movie that was actually done off of crowdfunding.
Okay.
So, albeit, X-Files has come back as an actual like network show versus this kind of crowdfunding thing, I think what might be driving it is that there's an awareness that the audience that really drove these shows to popularity when they were younger have now aged, and in the case of crowdfunding, they now have money to throw at the things they like, so that the creators, the owners of the intellectual property, can reach for the wallets of the people who they know they love this kind of this material, whether it be X-Files, Veronica Mars, or Farva, being a jackass. So bringing it back as a television show as a short run is, I would say, mostly about ratings, because they know that it's going to draw in a metric. How much can we curse on this? Just out of curiosity, truck ton. I'll go with truck ton. Metric truck ton.
Yeah,
of fans to come in. So I think it's definitely a numbers grab, because I don't have a list of Fox's shows right in front of me, but I guarantee that television as a whole has not been doing that great. So I would say it's more of a monetary than a we love the X-Files, we want to bring it back because we love it kind of thing.
Well, that is Fox in general, and I do think there's a reason why it was this show and not something else, and that's because you're talking about one of the largest cult audiences in the history of television. Like, this is a ton of people. I don't care about TV anymore. I don't want to watch much of anything that's on TV. I don't watch series until they're over and they've won 2 or more Emmys. Like, that's like my rule. Otherwise, I'm not going to devote the time to it. Because there's a lot of crap out there. There's a lot. Like, I was flipping through the channels yesterday and like stumbled across Bones, which is not the worst offender in the history of television. It's not the worst, but it was horrible. Like, it was a horrible plot. It was horribly rendered. It was horribly written. It was horribly acted. Television is shit now. So, like, unless you're watching HBO or AMC or something like that, cable television is where TV is. Large channels like Fox or CBS or NBC or stuff like that, they don't have shows that people really want to watch. They have a lot of nonsense that they can put together on a shoestring budget. That's the reason why reality television got big. And so there's a very good reason why TV is in the dumpster. And I think the X-Files, and I could be very wrong on this, but like in terms of actual narrative series that had a long run on television, I think the X-Files was one of the most lucrative for Fox. I don't remember the last show on Fox that lasted that long that wasn't The Simpsons or Family Guy, Go ahead, JJ.
Well, I was going to say, it's slightly off track, but same on with like things coming back from like the 90s, 2000s. I mean, not only TV shows, movies, and things like that, but even like we're of this generation that grew up with this, and now we have money to buy it. Buy back. So like, I'm not trying to do product placement, but I mean, I bought this because I could again,
Yeah.
And like breakfast cereals from the 90s are coming back. Things that have been discontinued from when we were kids and growing up. Now they're like, well, this generation should have money to buy it. Let's just re-release it.
Yeah.
And I think with X-Files, it's going to be, yeah, you growing up with it, you're going to definitely spend money on it. It's not just like, I think we're in this weird time where things that supposedly died are coming back because there's money. And I don't know what else, like even old game franchises and things like that are coming back.
Well, see, and you know, I take a different angle on that, which is that the things that were around when we were kids are things that are near and dear to all of us, obviously, like, or at least the things that we care about are. And now, I don't want to say that we're running things, but our generation is now in a larger position to influence stuff like that. And I wonder to some degree if there isn't like we suffer from nostalgiitis in this culture like nothing I've ever seen. And I wonder if to some degree like a lot of this having to do with the fact that like now the people, like as you said, now we're the people that have the money, but we're the people that have the money on both ends of the spectrum. We're the consumers that are willing to commit money to it, and then also there are a lot of us who grew up with it who are now in positions to return stuff like that. That's, I think, a lot of the reason why we're seeing things like Star Citizen do so well is because the original X-Wing generation, like, that played it when we were kids are now adults, and we're like, holy shit, this is just like that, let me pour some money on it. And that's why that functions that way. And I think it's on. You make a really good point. I think it's on both sides of the equation. The facilitators are the people of our generation suffering from that nostalgiitis, and we're pouring money on it because that's what we want. And I actually don't think that's bad. I'm very excited about it, especially with stuff like this, because again, television just fucking sucks now. Television is a joke, and almost everything that's on it that's popular is a reality TV show or something like that, and it's really nice to see something narrative come back. Do either of you guys have any other points to make before we skip on to that next topic?
I think what we can safely take from this is that James hates television.
But loves X-Files.
I love the X-Files television. We're going to name the episode that because fuck TV. TV is awful.
James hates TV.
I do. TV, yeah. Well, you know. I feel like good reasons.
I mean, you know that awkward conversation when your cable provider calls you and they're like, "Do you want to add TV?" And you're like, "No." And like, why not? No. Like, and you're just like, "Cause Netflix."
Like, yeah.
Oh, you just flat out tell them.
Yeah, and it's like, well, what do you do? I'm like, Netflix and waiting. It's called patience.
Yeah.
Netflix, and then having at least one friend who has a Hulu Plus account. And then you're set. And then you find another friend who has an HBO Go account or an HBO Now account come next month, and then you're set for life.
So this is, I'm glad that you mentioned that because right now I'm using my Netflix, and so are 8 other people. I'm using someone else's Hulu Plus account, and so are like 4 other people. I am using someone else's HBO Go account, and so are like 5 other people. This is how this works. I feel like a lot of Marx's principles of communism are being applied in small social levels with regards to television.
So communism really killed TV, right?
That's what it is, right? That's something else that we can blame the communists for. All right, so moving on. So Bloodbourne came out today for, what, PS4? Just PS4?
Yeah, only PS4.
It is.
I don't even know if it's rumored that it's coming to PC. I'd like it to come to PC.
Sure. And so, I mean, I'm not incredibly excited about it. Like, I definitely want to play it. It's just one of the things about being, you know, a PC-only gamer is that, and I was thinking about this earlier today, like, I have a backlog of 200 games I need to play. So whenever anything comes out, I'm like, that's cool! I'll see you in like 5 years. But
that backlog's
cute. It is, right? But this one actually looks very, very, very solid game. Really awesome art style, like a really sort of like dark. Like I don't know what it is. Jump on this with me if this doesn't make sense. But like, it looks like a lot of the art design was pulled from like Resident Evil and Dark Souls and then smashed together and shoved in an ugly blender. It's a beautiful game, looks incredibly violent, and is apparently harder than Dark Souls. So what we kind of wanted to talk about with that is, like, lately, starting with Dark Souls, and then with a resurgence of roguelikes, games have become more and more and more and more and more difficult. And I'm interested as to what you guys think is behind that. I'm gonna go to Taylor on this one first. Why hard games? Do you like hard games, and if so, why?
I do. I like it if they're done right, because you can do hard properly, which is if it's difficult for the right reasons. But then if you do something that at least kind of socially talk about in terms of like artificial difficulty, then it's not going to be very fun because you're just making it hard because you can and not because it should be. And you mentioned that it's supposed to be harder than Dark Souls. Some of the feature lists, because I don't own a PS4, so I cannot, nor will I buy a PS4 to play it. But compared to Demon's Souls, which was the original title, there's a hub world setup, so there's none of this bonfire to bonfire kind of movement like you had in Dark Souls 2 or Dark Souls 1. Fewer weapons, that's not really a difficulty thing. There's no magic, so there's less of this whole like cheesing bosses where you kind of sit back and throw poison arrows or throw poison knives at
it's
it
funny
for
that
20
you
minutes.
say cheesing because I call that tactics.
Or survival.
But, yeah.
It's not going against the way the game is meant to be played, but it's like, I'm going to take the difficulty out of it by using this one workaround.
Yeah, that sounds really good to me. That actually sounds really appealing. But yeah.
And then there's no death penalty in Bloodbourne. So when you die, you don't like lose souls. There's nothing like that, and there's actually a little bit of health regen as well. So I would say if it is more difficult than the previous titles, it's more difficult in that it's forcing people to play it differently, which it was could be seen as probably a slap in the face to a lot of people who played this series because they love to play one certain way because it was the way that worked, and so maybe more difficult, maybe not. I'm leaning towards no, not more difficult.
Okay. Okay, JJ, what do you think about that?
First, I think you can blame this whole love of difficult games on Super Meat Boy, being one of the big ones originally, and getting everybody back into this whole controller breaking attitude. But I think they have to step up the difficulty because I've read people completed Dark Souls using Donkey Konga little drums, and a Guitar Hero controller. So, I mean, I've played those games. We've streamed them. I don't know how you can make them more challenging. Another point with your visual, the whole visuals of the game, I also think it looks like a game that the Brothers Grimm would have made. With the creatures in the world. I don't know. For me, it's like a dark fairy tale. But
there's
certainly a dash of Victorian England as well.
Yeah.
Or just Victorian.
I personally enjoy hard games, like Hotline Miami and Super Meat Boy. One day I hope to beat Super Meat Boy, but it's one of those games you get mad at and you don't return to for about 4 months.
Sure. Okay, so with regard to that, while we're talking about that, I mean, you like hard games.
I do.
Why? Why do you like hard games?
It's that weird adrenaline rush when you finally get it right. You know? When you don't mind dying, it's okay. Some games when you die, you're like, oh, well, this sucks. I don't want to, like... If you die in Call of Duty on a difficult level and you just don't feel like playing anymore, I feel like with certain games that have these challenge, you just want to keep going back and back and back until you finally do it.
Something about fuck monster closets.
Yes.
Something about that.
Well, and they're not even... Or no bullet sponges. Like a lot of these games don't have a bullet sponge, which for me, when somebody says that this game is hard and it's because the boss is a bullet sponge, that's not difficult. That's just tweaking the setting.
That's 20-year-old game design. That's like the boss fight in GoldenEye. Like that's not how that works. Okay, all right.
So it's more like I'm beating the game, not the game's beating me.
Exactly. Taylor, what are your thoughts on hard games?
If I like them. Though I would say some of the more JJ mentioned that Super Meat Boy is the reason why for them being more popular and the controller breaking kind of rage. But for me, the most infuriatingly angry, difficult games that I played are not on the console. For sure, like arcade games can be made super difficult because you don't have a health bar and you trip and fall and die and oh my god, I've started level over because there's no checkpoints or whatever. But for me, I think the most difficult games I've played is not the best ones are the ones that they're not made to be difficult. Where like the player base will make it difficult. I know James and I have been playing Eve. James has been playing it. I stopped, and now I'm back and playing it again. And that game, in theory, is super peaceful. It could be Trading Simulator 2014, where you make chairs and sell them to other people who like chairs in space. But you want to do that, and you're like, okay, I'm going to do this. And then you launch with your industrial ship full of chairs, and someone just nukes the living hell out of you, and your chairs are left floating in space, and no one can hear you screaming.
So your shipment of Captain Kirk chairs never get delivered, and there are pissed off customers that you now have to deal with.
Yep.
Yeah,
that's why I like
so much about what you just said about because I mean you're not wrong. You're not wrong. All right, continue with the thought process.
So that's why I like hard games is when there's a way to overcome it. And in this sadly space chair tragedy, the way to overcome it is to join a corporation of other players or drag people living and screaming into the game. And then use them as meat shields and or actual offensive forces to then defeat the evil chair killer and to deliver your chairs to the sets of Star Trek fan-made films all across space. The fact that there is a way to get around it. If there is a challenging but rewarding way to get past what is difficult in the game, that kind of what JJ touched on, the adrenaline rush, is what brings people back to playing these games over and over again.
I'm going to email CCP with a petition to rename Eve.
If that goes through, I will join you guys in Eve. How's that?
Okay. So we're gonna actually talk about Eve in connection to the third topic. So I'm not gonna blow my entire thought process on that right now. But so Eve, yes. Eve is one of the games that I think about when I think about hard games. I don't actually like hard games. I like games that are realistic and fair. And I like the idea of Dark Souls because anything can kill you if you're not paying attention. Anything is a threat to you. You are responsible for doing a number of things every time. And if you don't do those things, you're going to end up dead, which I feel like isn't unrealistic in any game that features combat heavily. So games like Dark Souls, or FTL, or Eve, because those are the three that I think of when I think of games like that. There are responsibilities that you have in the game. Like in Dark Souls, you need to block. You need to pay attention to what's going around you. You need to not pause when you're in a dangerous place. If you do those things, you die. Eve, similarly, don't be scanning for the other entrance of a wormhole that you came through so that you get ganked by someone who just stumbles across you when you're not looking and paying attention to things. That's oddly specific and may or may not have happened very recently. But don't be an idiot. And that's really the thing in Eve. The rule in Eve is don't be an idiot. I like games that punish you for that. Games that make you take responsibility for your choices and actions. I don't think achieving something is achieving something if it's easy to do. And that's really kind of where I come down on the hard games thing. I'm actually really excited to try Bloodbourne. I'll probably pick it up sometime this week and check it out because I'm a fan of the art style, definite fan of the of the overall concept of the title, etc. So that actually segues really neatly into our third topic for the day, which is games we have a complicated relationship with. So just to explain kind of what I mean when I say that, I'm going to use Eve as the example here really quickly. So I started playing that game a really long time ago, like a really, really, really long time ago, and I didn't really know what I was doing, and it was very punishing, and it was very difficult, and I made one rookie mistake and lost something like 6 months of progress, because that was back when that game was like seriously cutthroat. It's not like less cutthroat now, it's just different now. And I walked away from it, and I've come back to it 5 times, which is that's more times than I went back to WoW. So like I've always had this relationship with Eve where like I knew that I wanted to like it, and I knew that if I ended up liking it, I would be so satisfied that I liked the thing I wanted to like. And I finally do now. I finally understand enough about the game that like I really genuinely enjoy it. So what's an example of that for you guys? JJ, I'm gonna go to you first on this one.
Oh God. I'm looking at my Steam library and I'm trying to think which game I've uninstalled and reinstalled multiple times.
Yes.
It's a lot of those.
That is an excellent indicator. That is definitely one of those things that I use as an.
I'll even say I think it was the first Hotline Miami. I got really into it, and there was one level that I just could not get past, and it made me mad that I just didn't play it for 4 months, and I was like, all right, let me reinstall. I'm trying to remember where I'm at, and I completed it on the first try, and I was so mad. It was one of those just like, why couldn't I do this 4 months ago?
Right.
And then just sat down and plowed through the rest of the game. Same with Hotline or Super Meat Boy. That's been uninstalled, reinstalled multiple times.
Yes.
FTL. I have 35 hours in that game. I have reached the final stage once.
Grasshopper, 35 hours?
Yeah.
No.
Granted, most of my time playing FTL was also on my other monitor watching Next Gen, and yeah, because that's what you do when you play FTL. You pretend you're part of Starfleet. There are a couple
horrible ship filled with red shirts.
And I've also been called. I have this weird relationship with Bethesda. I will get into Fallout or Skyrim again, and then I just get bored or just frustrated with some of the mechanics, and I just uninstall it and walk away. Like, I don't know why. I just can't marathon those games, and when I try, I get frustrated.
I don't understand emotionally the words that you're saying. Intellectually, I hear you, but I don't.
Well,
I don't understand.
You had 900 hours or something like that in Morrowind?
Yeah. Well, now it's a little closer to 1100, but yeah, no. I mean, like, I totally understand that. There are games that people just don't gravitate towards. And I guess. No, I can't. I'm trying to come up with a way to understand what you're telling me.
I love these worlds. I've put many hours into them, but it's just one of those, like, some game-breaking bug or I just don't care anymore moment creeps in, and I'm just like, I'm done
see, the don't care anymore thing makes me want to start a knife fight with you, like in a loving, friendly way.
No, I know, loving stabs, but it's...
Okay, no, and that's totally fair. I mean, like, again, like, you know, there's a reason why there are hundreds and hundreds of different kinds of games, and it's because not all of them appeal to all of us. But
and it's that weird relationship when I see people like you who are just like, I'm gonna play Skyrim for 9 hours, and it's like, you know, you're the girl, you know, the person you were in love with is now dating your best friend, and you're
only
just,
9.
You know, just watching, you're like, why didn't it work with me? You know, what did I do wrong? And I see your happiness, and it makes me very bitter, James. It makes me very bitter.
No, okay, I got it. Taylor, what are your thoughts on this?
Games I have a complicated relationship with. Yeah, it was WoW. It is no longer, like, that game and I are, like, done for quits. And yes, it is something that everyone always says, but I realized
It's
that
something that
I'm
that
giving you
you've
4 months.
said,
I'm giving you
actually.
4 months.
no, because like I've what I've done this time and what I didn't do before is actually like move on and find more games that kind of scratch that same itch that World of Warcraft did. And
Right.
I've found those, and they're quite
Oh.
nice.
And what are
really,
they? Out of
So hardcore
curiosity.
drugs and things like that, right?
Eve and
Oh
Warthog
no,
are the two.
that's not a better move for you. Going from WoW to Eve is not. That's going to be. That's like moving from a physically abusive, like 90-pound man to like a physically abusive heavyweight champion of the world. Like that's. Ugh.
I would say
I didn't say it was a
I think
healthy
it's.
move.
No, I'd say it's like drinking light beer and then just drinking moonshine.
Yeah, that's okay, but so what about your relationship with WoW was complicated? Like what made it that way?
That I knew I was very, very open with the fact that I knew it was just a treadmill. The entire game was a treadmill.
Sure.
It was this, as soon as it comes out, there's this race to get to the max level. And then once you get to the max level, then it's, I've got to work on getting geared so I can be ready to do the, dungeons, the raids when they come out.
Yeah.
And once you've got that, then it's running them. Then it's running them over and over and over and over and over and over and over until you get the best loot from that, and then you wait for the next raid, rinse and repeat while Blizzard is cashing the fucking check.
So repetitive behavior is not something you find calming, is what you're.
No, it wasn't. Well, not calming. It was calming. It just wasn't. It wasn't exciting. It wasn't entertaining, and that's what games are supposed to be. They're supposed to be fun. So when you're looking at when you're like talking to people who are like they're doing prime raids during like work hours, and they're spending hours of time in a game to get one item that they're going to use once, and it's going to get destroyed and not used again. It just wasn't. It was no longer fun. Oh, hi, Vixen.
Yeah. Yeah, she's been meowing the whole time, and oh, wait, there's your butt. Bam. Good job, sweetheart.
What was complicated about it was that I was very aware of its flaws, but I was willing to keep playing it anyway, as if it somehow would get better, and it never did. And so eventually I was just like, you know what, I'm tired of this. I'm not gonna keep maintaining this fantasy any longer.
Sure. Well, that makes sense with regards to the way that the gamer brain processes. So we want these experiences that are diverting, that are entertaining, that will, for lack of a better term, essentially stimulate the pleasure center of the brain. Like that's why we play games. We play games to escape, or we play games to be distracted, or we play games to have fun. It's one of those three reasons. And either way, we want the experience to be somewhat worthwhile. We want to feel like we're doing something. And I think one of the reasons why I always had an issue with WoW is that you couldn't stop playing it if you wanted to enjoy it. Like if you wanted to actually be competitive, if you wanted to actually be able to play all of the content and enjoy all of the content, you had to do it constantly. It became a job. It became a commitment. And that's not fun. And that's one of the reasons why like I don't miss that game the way that I do some. And it's interesting because like the one that I have the most complicated relationship again is Eve, and that's just because I've left it and gone back to it, left it and gone back to it. And I don't think the experience has like changed too drastically over time. But what's interesting, I think, is that I always knew that I would like the game, and I just wasn't the person that could play it yet because it required a certain amount of like rational thought and commitment, and like you can't play it too often because if you play it too often, you'll kill someone. But you can't go into it expecting a casual experience. And I think it's interesting that some of us have brains that want a casual, diverting, entertaining experience, and that isn't what we gravitate towards. Like I acknowledge that the games that I play for fun, and I'm not sure I have many of those anymore, which is weird, are short experiences that have like a certain amount of like, you know, Pavlovian ding responses to them. Games like Puzzle Quest or like, you know, things like that. Like I play those for fun, but I don't like those games anymore. Like now it's a thing where, and this all sort of circles together, like where with Dark Souls you beat your head against a brick wall until it's bleeding, but you eventually knock the brick wall down. And then games like Eve where you have to commit to it and like seriously like think about it and spreadsheet it and do research and like make sure that you have a checklist, because I am not kidding when I say this. Whenever I'm making a long jump or whenever I'm mining, I have a list of 10 to 12 things I have to do, because if I don't do it, I'm going to get my ass killed. And it's interesting to me that that's the game that I want to go back to. It's not like I have every Call of Duty, which is the most Pavlovian thing on the face of the planet. Just success, blood, ding, look at all those things on the screen. You just killed hundreds of... Like that is not the experience that you end up craving over time. You guys have any thoughts on that, like responses?
Do you know how hard for me is not to play Eve because I know it will ruin me?
Yeah.
Like, it's one of those games I've always had my eye on, even around when it first came out. And I was like, that's nice. You do you. And, you know, watching your Hangouts chat get flooded with Eve terms and me going, that's nice. Okay. Yeah, turning notifications off right now. Oh, look, it's still going on.
Yeah, you can't...
2 in the morning. But
yeah,
no, it's one of those games. It's like I know I would love it, and I know that I would want to. It's one of those games where it lets you do what you want, in essence of, you know, I kind of want to do my own thing, whereas WoW doesn't really let you do that.
You would love it.
Oh no, I would.
It lets you do your own thing within a certain realm. Like it lets you do whatever, but other players in it don't. Yeah,
and it's like
maybe. Cool.
Maybe I could be Taylor's delivery guy for the awesome space chairs, and you know I die, and it's like, well, now I need to change careers. But it's one of those games where it's like I will watch people play it, which is a weird game to watch other people play. And it's like,
unless they're in a giant fleet battle, in which case
and then you're like, it's Battlestar, but to me, it's dangerous. And I know one day I might cave, or I'm just going to buy into Star Citizen and get my fix that way.
Yeah,
it's cheaper.
So.
Yeah. So I mean, I think that the point that I'm really trying to make here is that, like, I don't think that gamers really are interested in the same experiences they used to be. And I know that, like, using the term gamers is a really dangerous term because it's a broad cross-section of people, and that, you know, that covers all races, creeds, genders, religious differences. Like, gamers are not a homogenous group. But one of the things that I've noticed in looking at the sort of hardcore gamer demographic, and I know that that's still very broad, is that experiences are not trending in the direction of Candy Crush Saga. That's not where they're going. And I think that's a direct result, actually, of things like Candy Crush Saga. I think you have this entire generation of, like, mobile gamers and casual gamers that are driving the hardcore gamer harder core. Like, we are being pushed over because we don't want to be associated with Susie Soccer Mom in, like, a deep way. Like, we don't want that to be what it is, because being a gamer is not what it used to be. And it's weird because we, I think, as a group, used to sort of, like, lament but also enjoy being persecuted by the masses, and now it's, like, super popular. Now everybody plays some kind of game. And I think it's funny that most of the stuff that like, we like, the reason we've seen the resurgence in roguelikes, the reasons why games like Dark Souls and Bloodbourne are becoming popular, is this move in this more hardcore direction. Don't hold my hand. Please stop holding my hand. Make this game harder. Give me a hard mode. Like that sort of mentality.
But didn't Dying Light get even a harder mode patched in, I think, post-release?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not hard enough, and it's like, yeah, well.
Well, before Dying Light, look at Bioshock Infinite with 1999 mode.
Yeah. So the whole thing, like, I think it's really interesting that the industry is going that direction. All right, so on that note, we're going to go ahead and wrap things up for us. Again, this was March the 24th of 2015. Thanks very much for making us part of your day. We'd really appreciate it if you'd help us out. Do us a favor, subscribe to youtube.com/pixelatedgeek, Twitch TV/pixelatedgeek, Google Plus page, Facebook page. All of those will have archived recordings of today's and all of our archival podcast. And so for Johnathan Crass and Taylor Tate, I am Tripod's host, James Huneycutt, wishing you a wonderful rest of your week. Thanks so much. Bye, guys.